John, the World Bank says poverty is going down globally. Yet it has risen in Africa about 500 million people. What is the path to reducing poverty and creating the type of hope that downtrodden groups like Boko Haram cannot exploit?
All of this is related, right? If a government is creating jobs, there's prosperity. People can feed their families, they see a future. And you have a general rising tide, okay? Because you're talking about the multiplier effects of having jobs, right? You develop a business. I believe in the free enterprise system, and I'm advocating that African countries adhere to the tenets, principles of both democratic rule, the rule of law, and free enterprise. Because that's so far in the history of the world, the free enterprise system has been the most successful at utilizing the resources of a given community. And so that's what we're talking in terms generally now in every area that a country is interested in using free enterprise. But so you have a situation where a factory, let's just take a factory, employing 100 people, or 50 people, heck, for that matter. That factory, the 50 people that are employed in that factory are helping to produce goods and services. Those goods and services go through either, if they are exported, well, they have to deal with export companies that help them export the goods. They pay for transport and so on and so forth. Those transport companies support jobs. Export companies support jobs. The goods that are sold locally go to wholesalers, which supports jobs, go to retailers, which again supports jobs. And then at the end, somebody who needs the product actually has something to buy in order to assuage a need, right? So a multiplier effect of economic activity rising from one company with 50 people that may actually affect 15, 20,000 people as you spread that down the road. When you begin to do that in a society and do it consistently, what happens is people are too busy making money to be thinking about terrorism and hiding in the bush and attacking people. You cut off the source of recruitment to those people because they find it harder to. How would you see this as a sales pitch, for example? You go to a guy who's got a good job, he's got a family that he's taking care of, and is looking forward to tomorrow, and you say, well, by the way, I want you to give all that up, come in the bush with me so we can bomb things. Obviously, that's hard, right?
Doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make any sense, okay? So what we're saying essentially is, and the World Bank is saying that poverty has risen up to 500 million, and I assume that it's from a lower level to the 500 million. If you travel in Africa, there's no secret. All you have to do is go past the big cities. In fact, within the big cities, you'll see that if you travel, as I have, through the interior of African countries and see how people live, you realize people are living in squalor. Okay, most of them without electricity, without running water, without good outdoor,
which in turn gets the thought that most of Africa is that way and does not have a possibility of a change or a future as you're advocating, and therefore status quo.
Yeah, precisely, and it's a vicious cycle. So Boko Haram is not the only problem in Africa. You have other types of problems, but they're the same. You have a warlord in DR Congo that has basically flattened that Democratic Republic of Congo that has, brought, life in that country and challenged the peace and part of the Eastern Congo, especially area around the mineral producing areas, very tenuous in terms of peace and quiet. And all of that is because throughout the history of independence of African countries, Africans have been fighting over the crumbs
Yes.
as opposed to having a great grand vision that they can build their societies.
Yes.
And by building their society, you have a rising tide that's lifting all boats. Nigeria is a perfect example. Nigeria has about 170 million people. And unfortunately, rather than focusing on how they can unleash the potential of the country, most of the leaders of Nigeria since the oil price explosion have been spending virtually all their time scheming on how they can get kickbacks and defraud the society.
I'm sorry, but so you're suggesting inclusiveness in the form of Nigeria being responsible and its leaders for all their people, as opposed to dealing with only one segment, which would benefit only a portion of their people.
Well, that in a way that is true, but the problem isn't. The problem is more horizontal, vertical rather, vertical awareness of prosperity and those that lack prosperity being at the bottom,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
Those that are prosperous and have become prosperous because they have access, right? They are the ones that can get the licenses.
Right.
So a person builds a factory and gets the government to put a tax on the importation of the products of that factory, to support, new enterprise development, right?
Yes,
Local enterprise development. The problem with that is that the government doesn't think in terms of, okay, by doing that, I'm now taxing the entire country and making them pay a premium because this manufacturer cannot compete, right? As a local manufacturer, these manufacturers should be able to produce goods and services that are much cheaper than anything anybody can import, which the law of market forces means that the imported ones will have a hard time because they cannot compete with the price of this manufacturer. But anyway, so let me talk quickly about the concept of dispersal of prosperity. In northern Nigeria, I'm familiar with northern Nigeria, so I'll use that as an example. The manner of education in northern Nigeria is part of the problem of prosperity in the north. So the government has to be a leader. You have to go into the north and you have to talk to the local leaders, all of them, and give them a concept and strategy for lifting northerners from poverty and create, sure they can, there's nothing wrong inherently about Muslim people and Western education. Nothing wrong. In Saudi Arabia, Zaki Yamani, Sheikh Zaki Yamani, the former oil minister of Saudi Arabia, educated in the West. You can go one after the other, right? In current Saudi royal family, in UAE, all these are Arabs. Most of them at the top of their societies are Western educated, but they're also Muslims. So the idea that you can be that in order for you to be a good Muslim you can't have education is to me a red herring. But that's not the point. Point is we need to get the leaders together. We need to talk reasonably, and then we need to say, okay, here is an educational plan. Here is an industrial development plan. Here is a plan for agriculture. And then create jobs. Because if you create jobs and there's prosperity, widespread prosperity, then people who want to attack the society have no voice because nobody will listen to them.